Okay, so I think we are going to begin. So once again, thanks everybody for joining us today's webinar about life in Hamilton. From the polls, it looks like most of you have been attending other webinars, which is great. For the few of you that this is your first welcome, thanks so much for joining. Just a little bit of housekeeping items about today's session. So we do encourage you to ask lots of questions. This webinar is for you. But we do ask that you use the Q&A section of the Zoom feature. So you should find that down at the bottom of your screen, and that's where we'd like you to ask your questions. And today's topic really is going to be about life in Hamilton. We know because of COVID-19, maybe some of your plans to arrive in August or September maybe have been adjusted or delayed a little bit, but we do hope this gives you a sense of what your life will be like when you do arrive. And I think introductions. So my name is Andrew Staples, and I am the Student Success Coach for International Students. And so I'm here to help you with your transition and adjustment, and I work with both graduate and undergraduate students. Behind the scenes joining me today is Anna Pereira. So Anna is the International Student Program Coordinator. She oversees your health insurance plan and does a lot of different socials, workshops, and events and programming for you. So she'll be behind the scenes answering questions. And I'd like to invite Yufei to join us and introduce herself.
Thank you, Andrew. So hi, everyone. My name is Yufei. I am the International Graduate Students Coordinator from School of Graduate Studies. My role is to support international grad students that are Masters of PhD students in their journey at McMaster, and I also plan programming and orientation for international graduate students. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Yufei. And Julie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie. I work as a student staff with International Student Services for the Student Success Center, specifically for Anna. And I'm also a McMaster student in the social work program going into year 3.
Great, thanks, Julie. And Miriam?
Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam. I have the same role as Julie, and I work for Anna Pereira. I'm going into my 3rd year, and I'm studying geography and environmental science.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, everybody. So as we mentioned, today is sort of an overview of Hamilton. We're going to talk a bit about Canadian culture, living in Hamilton, health and safety, and those kind of things. But we thought we would give you first, a very, very quick, not doing this justice, but a very quick, brief understanding of the location of where Hamilton is. And so Hamilton is located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Mississauga nations. And so these are the First Nations or Indigenous people that have lived in this area for thousands of years. And it wasn't until sort of the mid-16th century when colonization came from the French and English, and then lots of other nations. Obviously, people are immigrating to Canada all the time. But what we do try to do is really acknowledge that we are on these traditional lands, and these lands are protected by what's called the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And so what that means is it's an agreement that basically says, we're all sort of sharing this area, this land together, and we really should only be taking what we need, and nothing more than that. And we want to make sure that we're still, keeping the land, tending to the area for future generations and for others who come to join us. And so it is quite common for these land acknowledgements to occur. And so this is, you probably might hear it in future presentations or maybe in the start of lectures. And so I just wanted to sort of give you an overview in terms of why we do that. Hamilton, the city, was established in 1846, and then Canada officially became Canada on July 1st, 1867. So Hamilton as a city, we're close to 600,000 people. So for some of you, that might seem like a really, really small town. But in Canada, that's actually a pretty good sized city. So we're the ninth largest city in Canada. And we're located between Toronto and Niagara Falls. So it's about an hour drive, one way to Toronto and the other way to Niagara Falls. One really unique thing about Hamilton is that there are over 100 waterfalls. And it's really becoming known right now these days for a really thriving art scene and a really great restaurant scene as well. Obviously, you know of McMaster. It's located in Hamilton, but there are two other post-secondary institutions in the city, Mohawk College and Redeemer. And we do have water access, so one of the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, as well as Hamilton Harbor. And then Hamilton does have a mountain, which you'll probably hear a lot of people refer to as the Hamilton Mountain. And so our first quiz question for you today is, how tall is the Hamilton Mountain? So we're gonna let this quiz run for a few seconds as people answer. And then Miriam's going to join us and sort of give us an overview of what the Hamilton Mountain is. Okay, looks like we got about 50% of people have voted. All right, so I'm just going to share these results. And would you believe it, you are all wrong. The Hamilton Mountain is only 100 meters tall, so it's not a very tall structure, and Marian's going to talk a little bit about what it is now.
Hi, I'm back. So you will hear a lot about the mountain, up the mountain and down the mountain. So it's not an actual mountain. So when you hear from someone, if they're saying that they live up the mountain, it just means that they are living in an area that's up the mountain, up the hill. So when you're going there, you're actually going up the hill. And then the down the hill or down the mountain means the same, that they are living in an area that's down the mountain. And then you will see a lot of stairs that you can use to go up and down, but these are just the outdoor stairs that you can use for exercise and just going here and there. Next slide, please. So about McMaster main campus, so we are located at the west end of Hamilton, in a residential area called Westell. It's a very cute area. They have a lot of shops and a lot of tea shops where you can go and study if you can't find a place on campus. The fun fact about McMaster is that we were actually open in Toronto first and then relocated into Hamilton in 1930. Our campus is very small and condensed, so it doesn't take you a lot of time to get across the campus because we only get 10 minutes between classes if you have back-to-back classes to get to your class. So it's really good amount of walk and time to get to class on time. Also, unique thing about our campus is that it is actually multicultural and multi-faith. So you will see a lot of people from your back home and same religion. And that makes it really easy to connect with people and form connection, and also very helpful to get into more clubs. So here's the Student Success Center. ISS is part of Student Success Center. I used to work at the front desk as a SSC staff. This is a place where you will find a lot of support in terms of academic, personal, or professional. We have a lot of services that we'll talk about later in the presentation that is offered by the SSC. And if you want, and you will hear a lot about our other campuses. So one is the John Royce Center. That is actually a campus for MBA students. And you can actually go to that campus using the shuttle buses that are offered by McMaster, so you don't have to take the city bus or the Go bus. The other is a Center for Continuing Education. It is located in Hamilton downtown. They have a lot of services for continuing education. And then the third is McMaster Innovation Park. It is located in Westhill, so it is very close by, and you might have to visit there time to time, not for classes, but maybe for other activities. Next slide. If you want to know more about the campus and want to know where each building is and how to get there, you can actually book a live tour of the campus now. You can access the link that is showing on the screen, and then there's the days, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, that they have tours available from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. Next slide, please.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some Canadian cultural norms that you might want to hear about before you come here. So Canada actually has two official languages, so it's English and French. You'll find that not every Canadian is fluent in French. Most people have a little bit of knowledge of it because we have to take it in elementary school and high school up to a certain grade, but I'm not fluent. Some people are, but I would say a majority of people aren't. And then another fun fact is that 1 out of 5 Canadians were not born in Canada. And grocery stores in Canada have a variety of cultural food. So if you're worried about being able to find certain foods that you can get back home in Canada, a lot of main grocery stores like Fortino's, Food Basics have designated aisles that are dedicated to the foods of certain ethnicities. And then we also do have an international grocery store called Nations, fairly close to McMaster, which is basically dedicated to international food. And then finally, we also in Hamilton have a variety of cultural foods and restaurants. So you may be able to find traditional dishes from back home from someone who owns a restaurant of that culture. Next slide, please. Okay, so next we have a quiz, and it's how do Canadians pronounce this letter? So you guys can take a couple of seconds to guess, or if you know it, then select what you think it is.
I'm a little disappointed nobody's saying zoo. I thought maybe someone would have got tripped up by that. Okay, so we'll share the results here.
Okay, yeah, so I've messed this up before myself, but the Canadian way to say the letter is Z, and the American way to say it is Z. So I think a lot of people think that we say it the same way in Canada, but we actually say it a different way. And another thing to know about Canadian culture is that manners are used fairly often just in day-to-day conversation. So you'll often hear like sorry or thank you, and it's pretty typical to use these when you're talking to anybody. It can just be a stranger who's giving you a service, like fast food or like a barista at a coffee place. And again, with manners, it's pretty typical if someone's walking behind you and you have to open the door for yourself, you'll often see people holding the door for the next person as well. Definitely on campus, you see this a lot. It's kind of just seen as common courtesy. And then the final thing is that it's considered polite that if you are either talking to someone, engaging in a conversation with someone, or you're listening to someone talk, maintaining eye contact is kind of a way of conveying that you're paying attention or that you're interested in what they're saying. But not, the other half of that is, I guess, not staring. So it's okay and encouraged to make eye contact when you're in a conversation with someone, but it would be considered rude to kind of overtly stare at somebody for too long amount of time if you weren't talking to them. Next slide, please. And next up, we have some Canadian vocabulary to go through. So Timmy's and Double Double are both connected to a very popular coffee/pastry restaurant in Canada. You may have heard of it. It's Tim Hortons. So when people say Timmy's, they're referring to Tim Hortons. And I know that they're not just in Canada anymore, so you guys might have seen them in other places. And then the double double is a way to order coffee at Tim Hortons. So if you want a medium coffee with 2 cream and 2 sugar, you don't have to say all that. You can just say, "Can I have a double double?" And the person working at Tim Hortons will know what you're talking about. The next one we have here is a very like stereotypical famous Canadian slang, which we supposedly say a lot. I'm not sure if we actually do or if I just don't hear it anymore, but it's kind of just a way of being like, yeah, you know, right? Like, a, right? Kind of like in that sense. And then we have loonies and toonies, which are our dollar and $2 coins. And then finally, the last word is toque, which is just referring to a winter hat, which is shown in the corner there. Next slide, please.
Hi, so I'll take over that. So when you get here, at first you see a lot of squirrels. They're very cute, but later you will realize that we have a lot of them and everywhere. As you can see in the picture, the person is just sitting there, not even caring anymore. And next slide, please. So raccoons, I think you have a lot of seen them in the movies. They're also very cute in the movies, but in reality, they're not at all. We don't like them here because they go after our garbages. If you put out garbage outside in the summer, usually they will go and tear out the whole garbage bag, and then your garbage is everywhere. If you don't notice this before the garbage collectors come, they will just leave your garbage, and then you'll have that garbage sitting at your place for another week. So that's why we don't like them. And then next slide, please. The Canada geese, they're also they also seem very innocent, but if you go too close to them, they will run after you and bite you, and it really hurts. So just be careful with these two animals and bird. Next slide.
Okay, so next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Canadian money. So as you can see in the picture above here, it says bills come in 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100 denominations. As you can see, they're very colorful, and they're made of plastic, not paper. And actually, a kind of a fun fact is some people in Canada say that the plastic that the bills are made out of actually smells like maple syrup, which is funny because maple syrup is like a very famous Canadian food because of our maple trees. And it's also important to know that when prices are listed in Canadian dollars and when you have to pay for them, the rounding off of the cents is always to the nearest 5. So an example, and this is only when you're paying with cash. If you're paying with another method, this wouldn't be the case. But an example is if a notebook is 10.23, you would pay 10.25. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have another poll. How much tax do you think you pay when buying something in Ontario? Okay, so a lot of you actually got it right. So the answer is 13%. And we're going to talk a little bit more about taxes on this slide. So every price that you see doesn't include the 13% of what it costs. So once you've been rung through at like a cash register or at a food place, the tax is automatically applied, and it's always 13% of what you pay, what you're paying for it. But then on top of that, certain services in Ontario typically require, you're expected to tip as well. So at a restaurant, if it's kind of a one where you walk up to a counter and it's kind of like a chain fast food restaurant, you probably wouldn't tip. But it's expected if you're at kind of a sit-down restaurant and food is served to you by a waiter. And then in other places where tipping is common, so like food delivery, a haircut, a lot of local businesses will have tip jars. And then also in taxis and Ubers, and also like if you like getting your nails done, that's just another place where you would typically tip. And it's not required at grocery stores and kind of retail stores where you would buy clothes. And then just so you guys have an idea, it's normally between 10 to 18% depending on the service, but most people don't expect students to tip a crazy amount because they know we're kind of in a student studying phase of our lives. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, and then finally, just to start to prepare for Canada, we've recommended a couple things to help you get a better understanding of Canadian culture. So the first thing is reading Canadian news. So the CBC is a very popular mainstream source of news in Canada. And then specifically, you can even go on CBC News just for Hamilton if you want to kind of get an idea of what's going on in the city. And then Hamilton has another very famous or popular newspaper called the Hamilton Spectator. McMaster also has their own newspaper called The Silhouette, which is available online. If you want to see what kind of English songs are trending in Canada or in just North America in general, you can look up the Billboard Top 100, and that'll kind of show you what most people are listening to, what's most famous at the moment. And then popular TV shows, I feel like mostly in like social circles, the shows that everyone will talk about will come from popular streaming platforms, kind of like Netflix or like Amazon Prime or something like that. And then our next suggestion is to talk to your family member about how to cook your home food before arriving in Canada. So if you find yourself missing the traditional home cooked food, you still can make it for yourself. And then similarly, just a suggestion is to bring snacks and foods and things that remind you of home so you still feel connected when you come here. Next slide, please.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. And Julie, maybe you could just in the chat put a link to the Silhouette, just so students can sort of get that McMaster news if they're interested. So we did want to talk a little bit about what your rights are here, you know, when you do arrive in Canada. And in Canada, there's lots of laws to protect you, you know, so you shouldn't ever be discriminated against due to your gender, your sexual orientation, race, marital status, economic status, color, age, and this applies to international students just as it would to like local residents. And even though McMaster campus is, you know, a very safe and equitable environment, we do know that, you know, occasionally you might experience something where you feel maybe you're not being treated the way you should be. And so if you are ever in that kind of a situation, we do encourage you to bring that forward. And the best office to talk to get some support with that would be our Equity and Inclusion Office. We also wanted to share a little bit just about gender and sexual orientation. So in Canada, you know, we recognize the importance of respecting everybody's gender identity and sexual expression. And so if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, there is resources and community groups. There's actually several on campus, but through the student union, there is the Pride Community Center. And there's also the Women's and Gender Equity Network. And so because, you know, you might, when you arrive in Canada, or if you're online and interacting with other Canadian students, you might experience some different viewpoints that might be different than yours. And sometimes when you know, are surrounded or sort of confronted with these different views, it can come maybe as a little bit of a shock. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what we would call culture shock. And so, you know, you might experience a little bit of this during your online learning, but when you do arrive in Canada and are immersed in a totally new environment, sometimes culture shock can make you feel really, really overwhelmed. You might feel homesick, you might feel stressed, you might just get really irritable, or you might just be completely exhausted and you don't know why. One reason, especially for sort of the fatigue and getting a bit overwhelmed, can also be if English is not your first language, you know, when you come to Canada, you might suddenly be surrounded by English, you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that can be really, really exhausting. But this is sort of a normal reaction when you are adjusting to a new environment. So just want you to sort of think about this. It's not necessarily something you can experience the first day you arrive, or even the first week, or even the first month. But often, you know, 3, 4, 6 months later, you might sort of start to feel a bit overwhelmed about being in this new environment. And it is completely normal, and it does generally pass. So if you are sort of experiencing these challenges, you know, just remind yourself that you know, you're making a big change in your life, moving from one part of the world to somewhere else. And so what we'd encourage you to do is, you know, talk about it, share these feelings with someone you trust. So if you're an undergraduate student, there's the ISS Buddy program that you could, you know, join and talk to your upper year buddy. If you're a grad student, there's a grad navigator program, which is a similar idea where you can connect with an upper year international student. You know, talk to friends, talk to roommates. You can talk to me as the success coach. We have a wellness center if you're ever feeling overwhelmed and not sure how to sort of deal with that additional stress. But we don't want you to, you know, be suffering in silence and feeling like you don't have anyone to talk to. It's also important to remember to keep in touch with family and friends back home. So, you know, the great thing about traveling these days is that technology can really allow us to connect. I'm sure many of you are joining us today not in Canada, are able to connect. We also come out some of our international student services events and socials during the fall. Those will be we will be having socials that will be online, like trivia nights, movie nights, those kind of things. Okay, and next we're going to bring, I think, Miriam back to talk about some food in other parts of Hamilton.
Yes. So food, we have a lot of food option actually in Hamilton and on campus. You will see that we have over 20 locations to get food on campus. We have a lot of variety now. You can actually get halal food and then vegetarian food. Um, and then and then we have a lot of grocery stores and restaurants within walking distance of campus. So if you're someone who can go far from university because of transportation, we still do have a lot of grocery store and restaurant that you can get food from. We have Fortunos that's very close to university. They have discounts on each Tuesday, so that's typically when all the students go for groceries. But other than that, on a regular day too, we still have some sort of discount that is cheaper than the regular people. For restaurant, you can find a lot like pizza, Thai, bubble tea shops, and other fast food restaurant close to university. But if, as Julie mentioned, if you want more traditional food, there are restaurants more in downtown Hamilton that you can get food. I have heard they have more option like taking food for a week, and then you can just use it as you want throughout the week. And the best store to get everything for me is actually Nation. You can get everything from there, from vegetables to dry food to cooked meal and meat and everything. And that is also accessible by the bus, and one bus take you straight there. And next slide, please. So when you go for grocery and all this, you'll need bus. We have a very cool transportation system within Hamilton. You actually get a Petro card. It is paid in your tuition, so both undergrad and grad student get this. You can use it only in Hamilton. To get to places, and then we also have the Go Bus. So if you want to travel outside Hamilton, you'll have to take the Go Bus. We have a Go Bus terminal on campus, which will take you to most of the cities. But there are some places that a go bus doesn't go straight from McMaster, so you'll have to access the bus from Hamilton downtown Go Center. And then also we have the social bikes. It's called Sobi. They're very cool transportation medium. I used it last summer. So you just have to download the app, make an account, and they give you an account number and a password. And at the very end of this bicycle, you can enter your ID and the password, and you can use it, and they will just charge you by minute. And next slide, please.
Okay, so now we're going to move into talking about climate in Hamilton. So we have a question, which is, what is a wind chill? So you guys can take a couple seconds to choose your best answer. It's kind of a hard one. Okay, yeah, so a lot of people got it right. So a wind chill is the cooling sensation that is caused by the combined effect of temperature and wind. And this is also a really important term just to know in general when you're coming to Canadian weather, because often you'll hear it associated when someone says, oh, it's the weather. Well, they would say, oh, it's this, but it's colder with the wind chill. Next slide, please. So again, just about climate in Hamilton, we have, or in Canada, we have 4 very distinct seasons. In the summer, I think a lot of people just think Canada's cold all the time, but in the summer it can get fairly warm, probably not as warm as some places that you guys are coming from, but it can go up to around 35 degrees in the daytime in the summer. And then during the winter, the temperature can go as low as minus 25 degrees Celsius, and that's without the wind chill. So like I said, the wind chill actually makes it feel colder than that. And there's often large snowbanks until they melt, and then it becomes slush, which turns into a very messy indoors, but it happens everywhere, so there's nothing you can really do about it. And then also to keep in mind is that road and sidewalks become very icy in the winter. And people are supposed to salt the road and the sidewalks, but sometimes people don't, so it's always good to keep an eye out for that. But McMaster campus is usually very well maintained, and they get rid of the ice fairly quickly. Next slide, please. So this is an important question. So it's, should I be bringing warm clothes because of the winter? We actually suggest that it depends on where you're coming from, because it might be a better idea to actually buy a winter jacket either when you come, if you're coming from somewhere warm, it might be a better idea to buy it from Canada either when you come here or from an online Canadian or American store, just because clothing sold in Canada is designed for the Canadian winters. And when you're looking for a winter jacket, you can always look for a tag on the coat, and it actually says in some coats, if they're warm enough, it'll say how cold to what degree this coat can keep you warm. So that's always good to look for. I know I will always look for that. And then just also keep in mind, you don't need to have luxury brands for it to be warm. So just because a coat costs $1,000 doesn't necessarily mean it'll be warmer. And then just throughout the winter, it's important to dress in layers. So when you're inside, you can typically wear just pants and a sweater or a long sleeve because the insides of buildings are well heated and warm. But it's always important to have a winter jacket on outside, especially when you're on campus at nighttime. I always tell people, like, if you're coming out of a night class, it could be like 10 p.m. and it gets a lot colder at night, and it can be pretty brutal waiting for a bus on campus if you're not dressed warmly enough. Next slide, please.
Okay, so next we wanted to talk a little bit about your health and safety. Just because some of the laws and rules in Canada might be different, and so we just wanted to give you a brief overview. So in Canada, you have to be 19 years of age or older in order to consume alcohol, tobacco, or cannabis. And another rule that is maybe different from some people's home countries is you cannot consume alcohol in any open public spaces. So that means even if it's summertime and it's really nice, you want to go to a park or a beach and have a little picnic with some wine, in Canada. So you have to, if you're going to consume alcohol, it has to be done inside a building. There's also no smoking in any indoor spaces. So you can't smoke in restaurants or in bars, or really like any kind of public buildings, buses, those kinds of things. For some of you, depending on your age and sort of your life experience, you know, when you arrive in Canada, you might be exposed to some substances that you've never you know, used before. And so it is really important that you are aware of, you know, what the consequences of substance use are, what to sort of expect if you do decide to, you know, consume something, to do it responsibly. And so there is a link through our wellness website that will go in a bit more detail about, you know, these different consumables. Canada is a fairly safe place. You know, that there aren't that many people, you know, trying to scam you. But unfortunately, we have a big industry that does phone call scams and email scams and those kind of things. So just general rules that you should always remember is you should never be giving your personal information out to anybody unless you're 100% sure who that person is. So a very common one in Canada is you get a phone call. I get them all the time, and it's somebody saying that they're, you know, Canada Revenue Agency and I owe the government money. If I don't pay urgently, the police will come. Everybody gets these phone calls. They're all fake. They're scams. They're just trying to get you, you know, get your information and get money out of you. So the reason we're sharing this is just because, you know, living here, we know what these scams are. But if you're new here and you get a new phone and you know, you think the government's phoning you, the government's never going to phone you for any of that kind of thing. If you do get a text or an email that you're not sure what to do with, just reach out to any of us and we'll be able to sort of determine what your next steps would be, or if it's just something you should ignore. You know, Hamilton's a fairly safe place, especially around campus. The area of Westdale is, there's lots of students around. It's a very safe environment. But you do need to just be mindful of your surroundings and be cautious. You know, if you're walking around late at night, you know, it shouldn't be alone. It should be with groups of people. Just sort of general safety you should be concerned of. And it's also important that you're aware of any local laws, because saying, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that in Canada, unfortunately isn't a good enough excuse. So, you know, hopefully, you know, this won't be an issue, and probably for most people, you know, you're never going to run into any of these issues, but we just want to make sure that you're aware of it. The other issue or thing you should be aware of is 911. So 911 is used in case of an emergency. So, you know, if you're feeling really unsafe, or if you see a fire, or your personal safety is an urgent threat, you can call 911. That would connect you with a fire, police, or ambulance. Our security website actually has some really great tips, you know, just to stay safe while you're here. Bike theft, unfortunately, is a big problem. So that's why the Sobi bikes are so amazing. So if you are thinking of, you know, coming here and buying a bike, I'd suggest, you know, save yourself a little bit of stress and worry about bike theft, and just register with Sobi, because it's a really amazing way to get around town. Another thing that we wanted to share is the Ontario photo card. So if you are going out to, you know, to a restaurant and you want to have a drink or something like that, they will be asking you for ID. And as an international student coming here, probably the only ID that you would have right now that would be recognized would be your passport. And obviously you don't want to be, you know, carrying your passport around everywhere you go, because that's a really valuable document. And so what you could do is apply for what's called the Ontario photo card. This looks just like a driver's license, and you can apply as soon as you arrive. It costs $35, takes about 4 6 weeks for it to be delivered to you. And you can just use this if you ever need to show, proof of address, or your age, or anything like that. So it is a nice alternative to have other than carrying your passport around. On campus, McMaster's a very, very safe place. There's security around campus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's lots of these red emergency assistance phones if you ever need anything. We have a great security app. I would really encourage you, once you get to Hamilton and get to campus, to use the security app because they'll tell you when snow days are. And so, yes, Canada can get a lot of snow and ice, and sometimes the school is just overwhelmed with snow, and it's not safe to be out on the roads, and we will have a snow day, which means everything is canceled. Usually it's announced really early in the morning, and it's kind of an exciting thing because you can sleep in, not go to class, not go to work. So the McMaster security app's a really great way to get first notification about that. There's an amazing student walk home program, and this has volunteers that will walk you in the evening to different areas around campus. So if you finish night class and you need to, go to your house and it's not too far from campus, and you don't feel comfortable walking by yourself, we actually have a team of volunteers that will help you. There's an emergency first response team, which can offer first aid around campus. And then the last one I wanted to share is that you cannot smoke anywhere on campus. And so earlier I said no smoking indoors. The McMaster campus has gone one step further, and you can't actually smoke anywhere on the campus property. So even if you left your residence room or you left your classroom and we're just sort of in the green space on campus, you cannot smoke there. You actually have to leave the property in order to smoke. And that would include vaping as well. We really want to emphasize that your health and safety and wellness is really, really important to us. And we know that you're young, you probably feel invincible, everything's going to go great, but sometimes you get sick. Sometimes you get really stressed. Sometimes you're just not feeling yourself. And that's where the Student Wellness Center comes in. So they're located on campus, and they have doctors and nurses, and they have people that you can talk to if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or not feeling well. We also encourage sort of a holistic view of wellness. And so we have a great athletics and recreation program where you can actually, go exercise, use the gym. There's intramurals teams that you can get involved in. We have a pool as well, rock climbing walls, outdoor hiking trails all over campus. So we really do encourage students, not just to focus on your studies. Of course, that's important, but we really want you to take care of yourself as individuals too. There's spiritual support on campus, lots of different clubs, as well as chaplaincy on campus. And there's lots of different opportunities for you to get involved. And so I think we're going to talk next a little bit about some of those ways to get involved.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about international student services, which is the area that Andrew, Anna, Miriam, and I all work for, which is part of the SSC. So the goal is, or one of the goals is to provide cultural transition, support for international and exchange students, and it provides new students orientation and cross-cultural information. We also have an immigration consultant who can provide services related to immigration, refugees, and citizenship. And then Anna is, as one of you know, she's the contact for the university health insurance plan. And then again, as Andrew mentioned, he is the student success coach. So he's available throughout the year in the summer to meet one-on-one to help answer questions or concerns that you have during your time at MAC. And this can include anywhere between adjusting to Canada, academic concerns, getting involved, and feeling connecting to campus. One of the things that Miriam and I help organize is the International Student Buddy Program. So if you're an incoming international student in first year, in undergrad, this would be a great opportunity for you to connect with an upper year student. And I think applications for that will be opening soon. And then there's also workshops and webinars and information sessions, kind of like this one. Some of them focus on more practical educational topics that you wouldn't get in the classroom. An example would be, I think one of them last year was how to study effectively, just to give students more exposure to those kind of basic skills before they get stressed about it in a classroom. And then finally, we also do a variety of socials, which we'll be doing virtually throughout the year. Next slide, please.
Hi, I'll explain a little bit the support that you will have from the SSC. So as I mentioned earlier, we have academic, personal, and professional support available for you. In academic support, we have a lot of workshop that can help you boost your academic skills. So we have orientation and workshops on mastering multiple choice question, or how to write an effective essay, or how to write thesis. So these, it's not like somebody will sit with you and help you write an actual academic paper with you, but it's more like giving you an idea how like tips and tricks to learn. And then also we have a writing center. It's not a writing center where you will go and somebody again will help you write, but it is there to help you. So in that center, we have academic writing coach and an academic coach. They both help you. So the coach will help you more with like setting timetable to study effectively, or give you tips if you can't focus studying. And then the writing will help you with your paper. So again, they will not look through for grammar and spelling mistake, but more like setting the tone of your paper and overall the presentation of the paper. And the academic coach is only available for undergrad student, whereas the writing coach is available for both undergrad and grad students. For personal growth, we have the first year orientation, the welcome week for you. So that's a chance where you build connection with other incoming students. We also have career exploration workshop, and then also peer placement programs, also called the shadow program. And in that, we also have a lot of career fairs that are held throughout the academic year, and some opportunities in the summer. So it helps you find placement and co-op and even jobs for the summer. And for professional development, we also have cover letter and resume critique workshops and even drop-in. So if you want to build your resume, or you want somebody to look over your resume, you can actually have one-on-one appointment. You can attend one of workshop, or you can have a drop-in. We also help you with interview preparation. Also help you find work abroad. So that's called global experience. And then the main service is career counseling and advising. There are two different things, career counseling and advising. And then you can also have a drop-in with them, or book one-on-one appointment with the career counselor and advisor. Next slide, please.
Oop, I think we skipped the slide. Yes. Thank you, Andrew. So I'm here to just talk briefly about the School of Grad Studies. So graduate study needs are very different from undergraduate students, and so the structure of the departments and the faculties may be a little different too. To clarify, by grad students, I mean master's and PhD students and students here who are here to do their postgrad work. So the School of Graduate Studies oversees the faculties, so you might be connected very closely to your faculty for the academic side of things and connected to your supervisor as well. But we are here to offer support and resources for the skills and the general resources that you may need. So that includes an orientation. So this year we will have events throughout late August and early September with workshops, for example, about training for TA skills. We're connected with the library to train for research skills and answer your research questions. And we also have a number of social events aiming to connect grad students together and for them to find friends and people who share similar backgrounds. We also have resources to build successful supervisor relationships because we understand that a lot of you who are here for your PhD or research will have to build a very strong relationship with your supervisor in order for your research to go smoothly or just to have an enjoyable experience overall. So we have resources on that as well. We send out all weekly newsletter to all our grad students with upcoming events that are relevant to them and where they may find helpful. And we also plan events and programming throughout the year. So for example, all new international graduate students will receive an email at the beginning of July introducing them to the International Grad Navigator program where they will be matched with another current student from a similar cultural background, just to help them get more acquainted with life in Hamilton and being a student at McMaster University. And of course, if you have any questions about grad and you don't know where to direct them to, please email askgrad@mcmaster.ca and Kevin is happy to help you. Next slide, please. And of course, we have a Graduate Student Association, GSA for short. So this is a student-run association where the presidents, all the executives are current students. They are here to advocate for the needs of graduate students, act as a resource, and provide support and services that improve the general overall graduate student experience. And all the graduate student clubs are housed under GSA as well. So these clubs can be about academics, about cultural, about your hobbies. And as one of the events during our orientation, the GSA will be partnered with us to introduce you to all the clubs, and you're welcome to join the ones that you find interesting or you want to try out. And they also administer the health and dental insurance and the bus pass. So as a grad student, you may have a number of health and dental insurance available to you, including UHIP, which Anna administers, health and dental insurance as well. If you're a TA, you might have a health plan from your union. If you want to learn more about it, please attend the webinar on July 15th. That's the general webinar for all grad students. And I know that there's also a subgroup of GSA named International Graduate Student Association, where it is composed of all international grad students. Thank you.
Okay, so for undergraduate students, in terms of getting involved, this is a really great opportunity for your voices as students to be heard. So we have something called the McMaster Student Union, and they represent approximately 24,000 undergraduate students of McMaster, and they are here for political representation and the enhancement of student life. So as students, you're actually able to vote for candidates who you like. I think it happens like in second semester every year in the winter semester, and they kind of email out all the candidate information. And if someone has a platform where they stand for things that you like, you're able to elect them. And some examples of things that the MSU runs and things that you can tell them your opinion on as a student and things like that are they have so they run over 350 clubs. So all the clubs go through the MSU. And they're in 5 distinct categories, so academic, cultural, recreational, religious, and social issues. And then they also run different programs like the Emergency First Response Team, also known as EFERT. And this is just a way to get first aid in an immediate way if it's not a total like 911 emergency, and it's actually faster to call EFERT. And then they also are the ones who organize the health and dental insurance for undergraduate students. It goes through the MSU. Next slide, please.
Hi, so we have another question here. What is a model? So you can have a couple of seconds to answer this question. So a couple of you got it wrong. So it is actually B, so free English language program. So model, it is the McMaster Office for Development of English Language Learners. So short form is called Model. It is actually a free English language support program for both undergrad and grad students. They also have a lot of workshops that are hosted by certified ESL instructors, and they will help you with writing, speech, reading, and listening skills. They also have one-on-one consultation available for students, and then you can book appointment through their office for that. And they also have drop-ins to if you need advice or you need urgent service, you can also contact them and get the help. Next slide, please.
Okay, and the final service we were going to mention today is just about academic accommodations. And so if you feel like you might need some additional academic accommodations for your studies, the person you'd want to reach out to is Michelle Barr. Unfortunately, she could not join us today, but her emoji could. So there's Michelle on the screen. And so if you think you might need academic accommodations or different programming or support during your studies, or even if you just want to know a bit more information about what kind of academic accommodations you can get, you can email Michelle directly. So her email's just down at the bottom there if you want to take a photo of it. It's just bar, 2 R's, M6 at mcmaster.ca, and Michelle would be happy to connect with you. So we do encourage you to, continue to attend our webinars. We've got some more coming up. So for undergraduate students, we've got another round about study permits. If you've already attended these, you don't need to attend again. The content hasn't changed. So the one at 8 a.m. on the 29th, that's going to be for students who are new to Canada, applying for a new study permit. The one on July 13th, that's going to be for students who need to extend. So maybe you've done high school in Canada and you need to extend or adjust your study permit. There's also an academic transition for students prepping between high school and university. And then probably my favorite one is our student panel Q&As. And so that's when we have several international students just on camera. You can ask them any kind of question about what their experience has been as an international student here at McMaster. And then similarly for graduate students, you've got your one to apply for study permits. On Thursday, there's one about off-campus housing options. So again, that's just a couple days away at 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. There's going to be a general sort of about life as a grad student at McMaster. So that's one that you really do want to attend. And it's going to sort of talk about, sort of that transition between maybe an undergrad to a graduate student, your supervisor relationship, and different specific things that you need to know as a graduate student while you're studying at McMaster. And similarly, there's a student panel Q&A, where we'll have upper year graduate students to answer your questions. Very much everybody for joining us again today for another webinar. I know Anna and Yufe have been answering a lot of questions, but I'm not sure if they're, I know I saw there's one question I was going to address here, which was how do cell phone services work, where to buy, and how much? So this is a really great question. Unfortunately, Canada has probably the highest cell phone bills in the world, and I'm not exaggerating. I think they are just about the highest in the world. So you're looking at, you know, anywhere from maybe $50 a month up to $150, depending on the service that you're getting. The big sort of financial factor is data. So if you want to get data on a cell phone plan in Canada, it's really, really expensive. But do know that, you know, there's just great Wi-Fi on campus. Probably your house is going to have Wi-Fi. You know, restaurants, coffee shops, they have Wi-Fi. So if you're looking to save a little bit of money, you probably don't need to have as much data. And then where to buy. So you can buy in downtown Hamilton. That there's a mall called Jackson Square. It's maybe like a 10-minute bus ride from campus. And so if you go there, there's lots of different stores and cell phone companies that you could you know, sign up for a plan. You do have the option of bringing your own phone. If you bring your own phone, you just want to make sure it is unlocked. But if you did want to purchase a phone here in Canada, typically you sign up for a contract, which is usually for 2 years, that you're sort of paying the amount or paying off that phone. Okay, I see Anna's flagged another one here. Can I buy McMaster goodies on campus? Are they affordable to students? Yeah, so we do have a great campus store that has lots of Mac, like everything, toques, scarves, jackets, shirts, track pants, notebooks, all sorts of things that are branded McMaster. They are fairly affordable, I would say. And what sort of an insider tip is that they have these really great sales. And so sometimes they'll be getting rid of maybe older inventory, and they have things that are like really, really cheap. I know before the winter break last year, I think Anna, you got like 2 or 3 hooded sweatshirts just because they were such great prices. So absolutely, there's lots of opportunities for you to get McMaster swag, and they are also open online. So they're called the Campus Store. And so if you, I think their website's maybe just campusstore.mcmaster.ca. If you go there, you can see what their range is. So it looks like that is all from us. Thanks again, everybody, for attending and joining us today. And we do look forward to seeing you online at the next one. So stay well, everybody, and see you soon.